This speaker has been recorded at an online meeting of Addictive Eaters Anonymous. You can email us at contact@aeainfo.org.
Mina, would you like to unmute and share with us tonight, please?
Yes, thank you, Claire. My name's Mina. I'm an addictive eater. And thanks to everyone for being at the meeting and for the meeting being possible. And it's nice to see everyone, and welcome to the newcomers. And I am an addictive eater. But I sort of think back to what it's been like for me with food and in recovery. Like my earliest memory, I do remember being in nursery, and it was Christmas time, and we had a Christmas party. And I don't know if it was a happy memory or not a happy memory, but I do remember just being round a table with people, you know, Santa, there would have been gold coins and presents, and I think it was a joyous thing. You know, I remember enjoying it, but I just remember the feeling inside of just feeling a bit different. But I look back at photos of that and I think that was such a happy time. You know, I had my little hat on, and kind of growing up and, you know, coming from a home that there was addiction, alcoholism, and I lived in quite a lot of fear a lot of the time. And I remember, you know, a lot of photos from me in my childhood, I've always got a bar of chocolate or I'm eating, and I just remember the sense of comfort that I got from food. It did give me a sense of ease and comfort, and I absolutely loved chocolate. Chocolate was my go-to for everything. But I was not the type of person who could eat and not put on weight. I could literally look at food and I would put on weight. You know, to think of what it was like, I must have been an absolute nightmare around food, because I always remember having, always on a diet, my niece commenting that I was always on a diet, which I was, always trying to cut out food groups, like becoming a vegetarian, very obsessed by my weight and my appearance, and you know, never feeling clever enough, never feeling pretty enough, never feeling good enough, and always turning to food. I can kind of remember when I started to question, why did I always have to say yes to food? I remember being in a relationship with someone who has now actually died of addiction, a drug overdose, and I was in my teens, and we'd arranged to do things at the weekend, and you know, I was really trying to get out of this relationship, and he'd say, why don't we get some food? And instantly I would say yes, because I was powerless over food, and anytime food was mentioned or food was a possibility, my answer always had to be yes, because I always wanted and needed to eat, and I felt like that would just make me feel better. And for a long time it did make me feel better. But I remember being about 17 and being, you know, obviously very self-conscious about my weight. Both of my sisters are quite overweight, and you know, I always looked at people who were overweight, and just I remember saying things like, I never want to be a size 14, or you know, I never want to be overweight, and looking at myself in the mirror, and not wanting to really be around people because I always felt like quite fat, and joining fitness clubs, joining like Weight Watchers and Scottish Slimmers, and not really feeling like I belonged in those places, because I would reach my target weight pretty quick when I was younger, and then just sort of have to leave. And I remember always thinking, I think that there's something spiritually wrong with me. Like, I think it's a little bit more than just I eat too much, or I need to go on a diet. And I remember, being 17 and going to my doctor, I was in Weight Watchers at the time, and I was a perfectly healthy weight, but I couldn't stop eating. This was when I was 17, and just saying to the doctor, you know, I can't stop eating apples, can't stop eating food. And he just burst out laughing at me and said, you don't have a problem. He says, you know, I have a problem with people who have a problem. And the moment you walked into this room, I could see you didn't have a problem. But I knew I had a problem. And when the doors shut, I remember thinking, go back in and tell him that you drink too much. But I thought, no, I don't want to get myself into trouble. And it took, 10 years before I came into a 12-step program after that. And that was just lots of dieting, lots of weight gain, lots of trying to control my food, very suicidal as well. I've never actually attempted suicide, but my thinking quite often would be, you just need to kill yourself, get this over and done with. And but I know now that actually is my disease. And then, long story short, came into AA, didn't want this program at all, and then tried to leave AA, and then realized actually I need to be in AA. I was in AA for a couple of years, and went traveling, and met a lady who's in this fellowship. I actually spoke to her this morning, and she shared with me that she was in a food fellowship, and I asked her if she would take me to a meeting, and she did. She took me to a meeting, and I asked her to be my sponsor, and that lasted about 3 months. That food plan lasted about 3 months, and I just didn't want to stop eating. I fell pregnant, and I started eating again, and it took me 2 years and 2 pregnancies to get to a point of, having to get on my knees, asked to be sponsored, asked to have a food plan, and not want to eat. My desire to not eat became stronger than my desire to eat. And I knew, because I hadn't stuck around in AA for like the 2 years I went out drinking, that I had to stick around in AA, no matter what. And my experience has not been smooth. It's been nobody's blame but mine. And I see that, I was still trying to control my food and my life, and run the show myself. And I briefly went through a phase, I think it was last year, where I actually wanted to walk away from AEA, wanted to walk away from the program, sponsorship, and and I tried to just say, I'm going to try another way. And I knew really, really quickly that this works for me. Stick around, Mina. If there's one good thing you can do with your life, it's this. And to have a sponsor today, to be on a food plan, to have been taken through the steps, and to stop fighting things, stop fighting my food plan, accept that I am completely powerless over food. I don't make the decisions about food, and being completely fine with that. And get along with a sponsor, be in a fellowship with people, follow this path that has been laid out for me, that I believe my higher power has shown me the way, and still continues to guide and direct me in recovery. And today I actually really love being sober. I love not eating. Genuinely, I love the fact that I do not eat today. I've had a couple of days this week where it's been pretty full on, and when I've sat down to have my meal, and just, I'm thankful that that's all I can have, that I can't eat any more, any less, because I am an addictive eater to the core. And any time I feel moments of stress or just uncomfortable or pain, I can see how powerful my addiction to food could be. So I'm grateful when I phone people, I come to meetings, I weigh and measure my food, I connect with God, and I love the Serenity Prayer. I love that, that it is a we program. So I am very glad to be here, glad to not be eating today, and thanks for asking me to share.